Dispatch, Tower 34.
Tower 34.
Tower 34 is out of service.
Tower 34, out of service, 658.
Miscellaneous airbags.
They're all up there.
Is that both hundreds?
A lot of time, a lot of effort been put into getting this rig in service.
The timing worked out. The rescue was getting replaced. The tiller or the tower ladder was due to be replaced in 2026, so we're pretty close to that. And so our thoughts were, well, what if we combine the two? We save over $1 million by combining two rigs into one, and then we're not cross-staffing a heavy rescue anymore. So this will be our frontline heavy rescue and truck. Woo! So this is ladder 34. It's the new Pierce Ascendant 107 tiller that we just got from Pierce within the last month. So it's been in the works for the past few years, and it's nice to finally see it here at South Metro to start all of our operations with it. This was designed to fit at Station 34. When you look at our district, I think it's a good district as far as streets go. When you look at Lone Tree's master plan, they talk about building apparatus for the fire department that plan for the future and tighter streets and harder buildings to get into. So we see a lot of 3-story townhouses going in our district, a lot of center hallway, Texas donuts and things like that we are hard to get into, especially after people get off of work with parking. So this is going to help with that. We designed this truck to fit at Station 34. It's a 65-foot bay, and it's just 61 and 3-inch tiller. And so the thought is we'll have a room to walk around it. And if we need to in the future, we can always change a bay door in the rear to gain another 18 inches on the station. You know, if a bay door happens to wear out, to be on the exterior of the station to gain the 18 inches that the block would afford us. So this replaced Rescue 34 and then Tower 34, combined 2 units into one. We've always wanted, as part of special teams and tech rescue, to hard staff a rescue. We had the opportunity with the replacement of Rescue 34 at the 20 plus year mark, as our department tries to replace special operations apparatus at 20 years. That was an opportunity to look at the district and the needs and see how we could feasibly accomplish that. We looked at other departments that have surrounded us that have used like the engine rescue concept, and so it was built, you know, kind of off some of their lessons learned. And the thought was, you know, if we could get a ladder truck that still did everything that the tower did, but be able to add enough equipment to it from the rescue, that's something we might be able to just be able to respond as a primary response unit versus cross-staffing like the heavy rescue. So it reduces the downtime if it's out of the station, so that crews don't have to come back and pick it up. If it's on any call, they can always go in service depending on the call type, so that they're able to respond to a technical rescue call. So that's kind of the biggest thing for it. And once we determined the compartment space would work, basically our mid-mount towers had about 250 cubic feet of compartment space. The tiller was around 500 cubic feet. So we started looking at it to see if it was even feasible. And after we looked at our loadout with the rescue and what we need for the initial 20 minutes of a rescue call, that was something that we thought we could accomplish. And so with the addition of Collapse 45 in the last couple of years, with a grant that we got through UASI for that enabled us to be able to put some of the equipment that was originally on Rescue 34 for extended operations onto Collapse 45. So it's kind of a 2-tiered approach where the tiller would show up first and start a rescue operation. And just like now, we split our crews, so we're going to need both stations there anyway to get the number of technicians there to perform a rescue per OSHA and NFPA. So if we spread the equipment out amongst the 2 apparatus, we can basically start any sort of rescue operation with both of them, and then the other one would come in and backfill it. We still have good relationships with our neighbors, so any of our surrounding neighbors are also able to help out for a longer duration trench rescue or something that is going to require more personnel or any more equipment. But we haven't reduced any of the capabilities. We've just kind of moved some of the equipment around from the 2 trucks. It's a very cool concept. I think the biggest part for us was the storage space, and then the maneuverability. So our current mid-mount is a 46-foot turning radius, and just for reference, like an engine 39, one of our shorter engines, newer engines, that's got about around a 31-foot turning radius, and the tiller's right around there. It's between 31 and 32 feet for the turning radius. So it's a 61-foot truck versus a 48-foot truck, which is a mid-mount, and our engine's around 42 feet. So you're able to turn a 61-foot truck around like you would a 42-foot single axle engine. I mean, every day you show up at work, when you're on this truck, it's like, oh, it's like you're a kid again. So we tried to design it where we had good sight lines, talking to other departments, so you can see spaces on the ground. We tried to keep the back of the truck narrow and not fully extended, so that we did have good sight lines. So we could have gained more compartmentation with that, but we decided to go with more maneuverability and good sight lines. So that's the biggest thing. The engineers are basically being taught to box out our turns and to get deep into the intersection, so that you're setting the tiller operator up to really not have to do much input and tillering from the back. So from our training, that's kind of been the biggest thing, is letting the engineer drive the front. The tiller operators operate in the back, but they really shouldn't be doing a lot of inputs unless it's necessary. So if we can get those engineers to set them up for good habits, then it's going to make their job a lot easier. But at the same time, it adds a little bit of a safety piece too, that we've had some mid-mounts and longer trucks, with bucket swings that, you can't always account for some of the back of the truck with depth perception and things like that. So this puts somebody at the back that can kind of be their spotter as well when they're backing up, when they're responding to calls. They have cameras back there as well as for secondary aids, but it changes things a little bit, and that's why we put in the training and the time to get people comfortable with that. So the biggest difference is there's no bucket on it, obviously, so picture it like a straight stick. So ladder 12 is basically a very similar ladder to that. We have a 750-pound tip load and then a 500-pound working load flowing water with the water weight charged. Ladder 12 is a rear mount straight stick. This is going to be a mid-mount straight stick, so a little bit different when we position for a rescue or to go to the roof. So it'll be very similar to Tower 34 as far as it being a mid-mount. The crews don't really have to change, the thought process of spotting the turntable off the back of the truck. It's still right behind the cab, something that they're used to. So we will not have the bucket, but we do have a lot of capabilities with the straight stick ladder. We actually gained, I would say, capabilities as far as rope access. There's a rope system that we have on it. It's called a life pulley, and basically it's a pulley that Pierce has designed that has the working load of the ladder, so 750-pound tip load. And then we have a bar at the bottom that we would use to set up a rope system for our Harkin rope winch that we had through Pierce as well, kind of like a sailing rig. And we can set up and do a high point, change of direction, and pick somebody off a roof pretty easily with that setup as well. Sorry, it's 107-foot ascendant, so same as ladder 12. And it won't really change any capabilities, actually increase our capabilities at 34s for reach and all that.
Hey, how much GPM are we flowing on that one?
1007.
Kept it as ladder 34. It'll be ladder 34, but it also has rescue capabilities. So it'll be coded in CAD so that if another department calls for a rescue, it would get respond out on those type of calls. But basically, to stick with NIMS and everything else, we called it ladder 34, but we just thought it was cool and unique. It's not just a ladder, it's a hook and ladder, and it's unique to our department, and just kind of a sense of pride for the crews that have put in a lot of time over the last year with their training, and just something we wanted to try to capture for tradition and to kind of set it apart. So we replaced Tower 34 and Rescue 34. Instead of having to replace two, we purchased one apparatus and saved on the cost there. So instead of having to pay $1 million for rescue and 1.8 or $2 million for mid-mount or a ladder, we basically combined those two apparatus into one. We wouldn't have done it if it didn't make sense for our district. Like I said, with the collapse apparatus, having the ability to have all the wood and panels we have on there, I would say trench rescue is the one part that we were trying to figure out how it works, but we're going to be able to put two 35-inch wide trench panels that'll be pre-assembled with strong backs on there, and so we'll be able to start a rescue and get people into a trench until the collapse rig gets there. Rescue 34 only had 4 trench panels on it, so same sort of thing. We were still limited on trench on that one as well, so we would have needed a collapse rig anyway to get more trench panels there. But that's, I would say, is the biggest thing is trying to be creative with it so that we can have it as a hard staffed unit versus cross staff, and we're able to get to these calls sooner so that we can start a rescue sooner as well, giving people a better opportunity if they are trapped in a trench or a confined space, things like that. I think once we put it in service, people will kind of see the capabilities and the functionality with it, and so it just kind of shows, like, with working with different engineers and firefighters, everybody kind of comes up with a plan and collaborates, and we're able to get something that works good for the department.
Attention all units on station. Move by. Ladder 34 is now in service. Repeating, ladder 34 now in service. Dispatch clear time 10:35.